Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Miranda Romano, SVP of Media at Oxford Road. And if any of you have been to a podcast conference in the last few years, you have probably heard a lot of conversations about why brands should be advertising in podcasts. But that's not the debate anymore, right? Brands are here. We know the channel works. The conversation that we haven't been having enough of yet is where brands should be buying within podcasts, and specifically the role of independent creators. So today, we're going to unpack that a little bit. We're going to talk about what's working, what's missing, and what else everyone here in the room can learn. So let's start with some introductions.
Hey, I'm Jessica. I run brand marketing at Shopify.
I'm Brynn Greenelsh. I run audio marketing at stamps.com and ShipStation.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see all of you today. I'm Brittany Clevenger, and I am a Senior Director of Growth Marketing at BetterHelp Online Therapy, and I scaled our podcast, streaming, and radio, and now I work on brand integrations.
All right. So I want to start by setting the table. When a brand works with an independent creator versus working with a major network, what changes, Brynn? What's different?
So the primary thing is just access to the host. I have been able to get on host calls and go back and forth with the creators and spitball ideas and brainstorm, and the hosts are just very, very eager to make the integration work. But really it's the access to the host and being able to have a bit more of a partnership.
Got it. Brittany?
Yeah, that's access is huge. I would say the first one that comes to mind for me is flexibility. And I think that's really underrated, and we don't talk about that enough, right?
Yep.
Because when you've got a huge marketing budget or even a small marketing budget and you're trying to prove out a channel, things change, budget shifts, like the flexibility and the excitement from the host to make it work for you. It gives you the opportunity to really have each other's back. Like if you are flexible and we need to change something, shift something, move a schedule, they know that we have their back, right? Like we'll always make it up to them. And so I think the flexibility and the true partnership it just feels really deep and authentic.
Yeah. So it's the accessibility, the partnership. I heard the word yesterday, sweat equity. It's like they've got a personal investment in really making it work. And that unlocks the flexibility, the customization, the diversification. And even what we see is like there's a lot more muscle put into that partnership.
Yeah.
So creatively too, right? And the creative is next level because they're so passionate and they really want to make this work. You said the sweat equity, they've got to make this work. Podcast is the land of dreams. This is where dreams come true. And it is, the creative is great. There's an opportunity that comes from the access of the host. But yeah, I think the creativity that it unlocks is really amazing too.
Yeah. So I want to build on that, right? Because at the end of the day, brands aren't just working with independents because it feels nice, although it does feel nice. And, maybe that's part of it too, but they're doing it because it works. And so, Brynn, maybe we can start with you again. Can you tell us how working with independent creators affects business impact, brand perception, or engagement? Like, what are you seeing that's different in the numbers?
Yeah. So, really it depends on what your business goals are. So for stamps.com and ShipStation, for example, we're really trying to target net new audiences, and we're really trying to get into those specific audiences. And the way that we can do that is by finding some really niche independent creators, get into that net new audience, and then we can also find some good efficiency there because of that host access, because of that really engaged audience. But then if your business goal is brand awareness, you can leverage the credibility that the creator has with their audience to help build brand perception. But it's really the authenticity of the ad read makes that long tail so much better. Like Tim Ferriss, for example, we have really low frequency on his show, but I see promo code Tim coming through every month.
Yeah.
And the quality of those customers, the LTV of those customers is much higher than any other.
Right. It isn't passive, right? Because
Yeah.
they're loyal. They're listening to this
Yeah.
independent
The
creator.
lower funnel metrics that are important to us are a lot better.
Yeah. And you hit upon the word like efficiency.
Mhm.
Like it's interesting because like a lot of times when you look at like CPAs or ROAS, we do see that efficiency, but also efficiency in the CPM, but sometimes not so much. Like I think with the independent creators, again, there's diversification, customization. So we see variability even in the CPM. Some of them are more efficient, some not so much. But in looking at our own, over $1 billion of performance data that we have in orbit, 80% of top performers in our database are independents.
Yeah, they're so efficient. And they perform so well. Higher LTV across the board. It doesn't matter what vertical the brand is in. Like podcast is consistently, because I used to work on the agency side as well. Shout out to the agencies, y'all. Any vertical I worked on, podcast was always a top performing, higher LTV, higher ROAS channel compared to like even some of the lower funnel click channels, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
One of the big business impacts, hear me out, y'all, hear me out. One of the big business impacts, stay with me because I know it sounds crazy. Small and not even small, but independent creator shows, and lots of them will take you to being a household name.
Yep.
You don't need to be on a massive show to get the reach and get to be a household name. Let me tell you, people will probably forget your ad on Instagram. I'm sure they're great ads. Ours are great ads. But like, we all scroll and we don't stop
It's
pay
passive.
attention. It's passive.
Yeah.
But they will absolutely remember that they heard your brand on their favorite super small niche podcast. And they're like, wow, you really went there. You are really supporting my small creator. And if you are new to podcast, just use an agency. Just do it, right? I mean it, because like you probably don't, it's going to take you forever to figure out the space. It's going to take you forever to figure out how to access these hosts, find these shows. Just go to the experts. That agency fee is the best fee that you're going to pay for them to, I know, I swear I'm not on the agency side
We're not
anymore.
paying her.
No, she's not paying me.
No, we're
I
not.
say this, I've said this on a lot of panels for years. Like, if you want to scale your brand, there are so many ways to crack podcast. A lot of people do think that just going straight to the huge shows is it. I think that you need a diverse portfolio of small, medium, large shows. And it's very difficult sometimes to get into this industry. The barrier is a little bit high. We need to make it a little bit easier to figure out. So I really can't say enough. Just like if you're coming into pod, go find the experts. Don't waste the time. Get on the small shows and it'll be so worth it.
Love it. So if you think about some of the biggest podcast names out there today, Joe Rogan, Dax Shepard, Ashley Flowers, they all started out as independent podcasters. And some lucky brands got in very early. And Brittany, you've been doing this a very long time, not just at BetterHelp, but at your former agency. So can you tell us about a creator that you got in early with and the value that you see from that partnership and how the relationship has evolved?
Yeah, I think, this one's interesting because so many shows end up at network. Sometimes they stay independent. So I think where they end up doesn't really matter. But like you just heard Anthony and, the girls on the last panel, that shout out was so beautiful and so meaningful. I love what Anthony said. He said, your show was 3 months old and BetterHelp placed an ad. We don't wait, right? Like we don't wait. If it's great content, we want to get in, whether that's with a network or whether it's independent. But I thought that was like a really great example of a show, even if it's with a network, that don't wait. If you're a brand and you see an opportunity, it's a beautiful fit, take the risk. It's worth it.
Yeah, that first mover advantage before pricing and flexibility potential goes away. Jess, I'd love your perspective being in somewhat of a more competitive category.
I actually don't think we're in that competitive of a category. Shopify is obviously an e-commerce platform, but we're really in the business of building entrepreneurs. And so very little need to build awareness of Shopify. What we need to do is open the category of entrepreneurship and encourage more people to become entrepreneurs. So a lot of what we traditionally had done in podcasting was very bottom of funnel, sort of like dynamic work, really sweeping the bottom of people who are already ready to move on to Shopify from another platform or convert. what our work is really building entrepreneurship and making people understand that their favorite creators are not just podcasters, but they're CEOs and they're entrepreneurs and they're building businesses outside of podcasting as well. I mean, the best example of someone who we knew was going to crush it the day she started the podcast was Emma Green. She, from day one, is a perfect representation of what Shopify embodies, which is anyone can be an entrepreneur. You got the grit and you got the hustle. And now she's built billion-dollar businesses all on Shopify. And so we were with Aspire from day one, and she's absolutely crushed it. Of course, in every part of the funnel, but truly, both the top and the bottom. Others that I think have found earlier, just one that I was on a panel with yesterday, the Tiger Sisters. Who else from our side of the house? I mean, we really do look for those people who can authentically tell stories of building on Shopify and more than just a merch business, which is amazing. And we love that. And merch is a great category. But those who are actually building businesses that, will become billion-dollar businesses. Podcasters are the biggest creators in the world. For a long time, we just worked with YouTubers or TikTokers, but podcasters hold everyone's attention. And I'm excited that a lot of that work has moved on to my team.
Yeah, that's a great segue because I want to talk about scale. Jess and Brittany, I'd love your perspective on how you guys are balancing the need for reach with wanting that authenticity that you get from those independent creators. And in terms of download numbers and audience size, how small are you willing to go?
I can start. I mean, thought you said it best. I don't believe that the next super influential creators will be the Mr. Beasts or the Joe Rogans. It's going to be those who speak to a very niche audience, but those audiences are so engaged that they are on the podcast the second it comes out. They are buying everything that you tell them to. They are interested in all of your sponsors because you know that they care. And that doesn't necessarily come with scale. It comes with a super intimate relationship with your audience. And so we love the big. We love the mass scale, of course.
Yeah.
We've been on Call Her Daddy for a few years now. Alex is the best. But we also love those who are speaking to a super niche audience because they definitely convert better. But they also really do encourage entrepreneurship in a way that we can measure and see. So I do really think it should be both big and small.
I agree. And now I want to give a shout out. This panel is sponsored by Podscribe. Just kidding. It's not. If you haven't used their incrementality tool, it's awesome, right? And it helps you really, we have this down to a science, right? 7 years ago, I was for sure just like slinging ads on podcasts. Now it's so much more of a science because we have the tools. The industry has really evolved, right? Like lots of leadership with, Podscribe and the wonderful agencies. And so it helps you achieve that scale more tactfully, and you're spending your dollars wisely because now you can see if you're using a tool like Podscribe, you can see, okay, I'm going to reach, 40% of these listeners on this show are new listeners. That's really valuable information, especially now, 5-6 years ago, people maybe would listen to like one podcast, two podcasts, right? Like now we know year over year, so many more people are listening to podcasts and they're listening to more podcasts, right? So having it down to a science to achieve that scale is also really important. Yeah. And it helps us be able to tell the difference between, is this large show a good choice and a good risk for my money, or, a bunch of small shows that are going to help reach more audiences.
Yeah. It's a balance, right? Yeah. Serving all sides of the funnel. Have you guys looked at the impact of the sort of like tier 2, tier 3 creators versus tier 1?
I mean, that just means like according to size, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. We love the small shows. That's why I'm saying like, get an agency because chances are you probably are not going to have the 10 people you need on an audio team internally
the army
to handle the logistics of booking these shows, but it's so worth it. So yes, we will go really small. It really just is about bandwidth and making sure that we have the agency support or the bandwidth to really support it, but it's worth it.
Yeah. So let's shift to creative. Brynn, how have you seen independence change creative?
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, I've been able to get on calls with these creators and like go back and forth and spitball different ideas. And, they're just so eager to really make the ad reads work. And a lot of the time, if if they're a user of our product, or even if they're not necessarily a user, but they sell merch or something, which they do a lot of the time, they can give a natural integration and they can speak to a service like ours, which is e-commerce shipping software, which is truthfully not the sexiest product out there or the sexiest service out there, but entrepreneurship like Shopify, entrepreneurship can be sexy, and e-commerce shipping it's still important, and so when we're able to get together and work together to make an ad read, and we have a creator that is eager to make it work, the ad read can really come to life, and that's just not something that you always get when you're with a big network who's just reading the script.
Yeah.
I love this topic because we also all get so lost in the logistics that sometimes like creative becomes a one-way conversation.
Yes.
It needs to be a two-way conversation, and I need to do better at that. That's actually on our roadmap this year, is we want to get feedback more often from our hosts, small and large, on the creative and the talking points we are delivering. And obviously it can be a lot easier to reach an accessible host than it can be to get to some of the large ones, right? So I think like turning that creative into a two-way conversation and getting feedback on the talking points you're delivering is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feedback's a big one. That's a really big one.
Agreed. I also like the idea of thinking about what other channels we can work with the creator on. I mean, obviously podcasts is usually the main thing, but you're going to reach a different audience through their social channels or through the show's social channels, or through a speaking engagement. We've asked some of the podcasters we work with to go on stage with us at things like NRF or Shop Talk. It becomes like a much more fruitful relationship if we can really think about what are the other places in which we can build the partnership. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we can do this at scale. So on the brand team, we are very particular about those who we can build sort of a lot of those outside relationships and partnerships with. But it does mean the creative gets better. They're more invested. They certainly care about the brand a ton more. And then we're also offering them opportunities that they might not otherwise have.
That's such a great point, and I would love to expand on that because I do feel like, and again, nothing against like celebrities or the big shows, but like we've heard from y'all, like people really relate to seeing expanded campaigns with more relatable people that like they feel like really understand them in their lives, right? So I think like we are now taking a lot of our podcast hosts and partnerships like cross-channel for sure, and it doesn't always need to be like a big splashy celebrity to end up being some of our top performing social assets of the year.
People will line up for hours and hours to come see their favorite podcaster, not the celebrity podcasters, but the ones that they've been listening to for years and years, that they've grown up with, that they know their whole life, they know their family, they know everything. Like they want to show up, and Shopify does so many IRL events, and we've seen that without question, like we get the best turnout and the happiest customers when it is more of the mid-tier creator who just is so engaged with the audience and can bring them out.
Yeah. They're their companion. And just going back to the, like the bigger their name, it's almost like there's really no accessibility. And almost always in those cases, they're just reading off the copy points and that's it. So you're paying that premium CPM for just them sticking to the copy points. I want to talk about the friction, and Brittany, like you've hit upon this, and hire an agency. We need 10 people. Jess, you also hit on it, like the scale issues. Let's be honest, buying independence, it is not easier. It is often messier. And so I want to talk about like those friction points and whether or not the upside is still worth it.
I think for us, it is because, again, we're not doing this at massive scale. And so, Oxford and I often have the conversation, like if we can't measure it in the same way because they're not going to give us the pixel or whatever it may be, like, is that a trade-off I'm willing to make? And the answer is yes. But that's because, again, we are specific. We're looking for podcasters who are building businesses that can tell this authentic story, that can move outside. So a lot of times the trade-offs in my situation are a yes, but I'm not operating at the kind of scale that our performance team is, or that I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Brynn?
Yeah, no, it is worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's trade-offs, right? Like they might not take the pixel that we want, or CPMs could be all over the place. And everything can just be a little trickier. There's no standardization.
Yeah.
We were talking about billing. Billing can be harder.
Oh, God.
So we have to chase these independents for an invoice. We're like, we want to pay you.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't know how to work can you just take this Excel or email as a proof?
Like, do you want to send me an invoice?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
I will say this is the one place that it is necessary to really standardize your approach and have a system, right? Like make sure your systems are really locked down. You just got to be quick and efficient to know what you're communicating to them. There can be so much education, like you guys have all touched on, especially like what's a pixel? I'm like, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Here we go. But it's worth it for sure. But have your system down, know exactly like what you need, what your non-negotiables are very quickly so that you don't waste too much time.
It just amplifies the fragmentation that we're already living with on a day-to-day basis, right? What do you all wish were different? Like if you could wave your magic wand and like make it happen in terms of like making it easier to work with independent creators.
Oh my God, I was not prepared for this question. This is a great question. So I'm going to think about it.
Yes.
Standardized measurement.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely that.
Okay. An invoice.
And that's for everything, not just podcasts, just everything.
Yeah.
Can somebody please figure out multi-touch attribution?
Yeah, there we go. Cool. So something that I find really interesting is that in podcasting, there are creators out there who turn down those big network deals and they really bet on themselves. And I think Stephen Bartlett is probably like the biggest and the best example for me. Brittany, when a host or creator does that, right? Like what does that signal to you when they make that conscious decision and turn down loads of money to remain independent?
Oh, yeah, that's huge. We love people that bet on themselves, right? And we're going to support them all day, every day. And then we are the ultimate connector. And I think everybody on this stage is the same way. Like we talk, we refer shows, like we share trade secrets. So when someone takes that bet on themselves, we also do our part to help make them successful. And we love to support. So let's keep the industry that way. It's a fantastic industry. I never want to leave audio, but that's what that says to me for sure.
I love it. It just goes back to that partnership, right?
Yeah, like I need your show to continue.
Yes,
it's really good.
I also think it signals flexibility, like that they are willing to do something that may be outside the box. I mean, we've done specialized shows with folks like Steven and now with the new host on Flight Story, Maggie Sellers. We've done mini episodes with Emma, who I know isn't independent, but you know, I really do think it signals that they're willing to work the brand and think about like what works for us. Also, I think it means that they're going to want a longer term partner. And so really thinking about how can we build those longer term partnerships so we're not always chasing the like, okay, what's the next 3 months? What's the next 3 months?
Yeah,
exactly. It's, you know, the whole like ethos of these independent creators is that they're not willing to sacrifice the sanctity of this thing that they've created. And that ethos extends to advertisers. They're not going to work with someone necessarily that they don't align with. And there's been times where I've had creators say no, like the alignment's not right. And
I actually love that.
And I love
when
that.
they say no, I'm like, respect. And put you on the next one.
Yeah, because the ad read probably wouldn't have been great and the audience would have seen through it. And that's totally fine. But we also have creators who are like, yes, I love ShipStation and I use ShipStation, or my audience has a ton of business owners in it and they're really going to see the value in this. And that's when the magic happens. And that's when you know it's going to be a really valuable long-term partnership.
I used to use ShipStation.
Did
Look
you?
at that. Can you give us an ad? Just kidding.
I know. I'm going to sponsor everything while I'm up here. I'm so glad you mentioned flexibility because it's such a great point. We were talking about how it can be super, super difficult to work with some of the independents. But man, on the other side of the coin, some of their teams are like top notch, deliver everything on a silver platter. And I'm like, holy cow, I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I didn't have to brainstorm my own creative concept. For your whole show. So some people like, big shout out to like School of Greatness. Like their team is just phenomenal at delivering and deliverables, deadlines. we don't have to babysit and keep them on deadlines. So I'm
Yep.
glad you mentioned that, because it's a really great point that some of them are just like, their teams are incredible.
Yeah, I would actually agree, right? Like, not all independents are creating, like, some of them are even more on top of it. Like, from a major network, it's like, it'll take us 2 weeks to pull the download numbers on all of the baked in reads that you're buying. It's like 2 weeks. And with some of the independents, it's just like, we don't even have to ask. It just shows up in our inbox, and it's amazing. They do all of the heavy lifting for us. What do you guys think that like says about their relationship with the audience?
I think it means that they're not willing to sell the audience something that they don't believe
Yeah.
in, and it establishes that credibility
Yeah.
that they have, and I think that is so important, because for us as advertisers, we're leveraging that, but not in like a predatory way, like, oh, the
Yeah.
audience trusts you, let's sell them something. It's not like
Yeah.
that. It's like I was saying, it's about finding that alignment where the creator really believes in what you're selling,
Yeah.
and they know that it's going to add value to their audience, and it's that long-term partnership.
Yeah.
It hopefully means they're not going to stuff 16 ads into a show.
That's what I was getting at. Yes.
That's what it usually means.
Yeah.
Obviously, the most important thing and the reason we all have jobs is the listener experience is the
Yep.
most important thing.
Yeah.
If you care about the listener experience, your ads are going to work because they're going to listen to your ads.
Correct.
So I think they tend to really care more about the science of delivering the ads at the right time, at the right
Yes.
frequency. And, we don't want to be listening to something super heavy and vulnerable and authentic, and then it's like, here's an insurance commercial like plopped right in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a way to deliver the ads, and I think the independents take it a little more seriously sometimes.
I mean, so serious. Like, when in talking to independent networks, creators versus, it's always about community, fandom. It's like that comes before anything else, which is why we see lower ad loads. The majority of the reads are host read ads. They go longer on the reads. Like, for all of those reasons, is what makes it work, in many cases better. And it brings us that efficiency.
I think those words are so important, community and fandom, which are usually associated with YouTubers or Instagram creators. And I think audience is typically the word used in podcasts, but I really do think like the community feel of someone who trusts their audience, has brought them along, shows up week after week to run their podcast. It's such an important, that idea around fandom and community, which I think applies to podcasters even more than other creators.
Yeah. So we've got a couple minutes left, and I want to close with some practical advice. So for brands in the room that have not worked with independent creators, what advice would you give to them, and where should they even start?
I would say call an expert, call an agency, call a consultant, call a brand. I have so many people that, request 30 minutes on my calendar and end up talking forever and talking shop and educating each other. Audio is like literally the best media industry. And I've worked in most of them. So get time on somebody's calendar and learn the tricks of the trade, but go to the experts and don't waste your time for sure.
Yep. Go to the experts. It can be a handful. So yeah.
I agree. I also think it's important for someone internally to also truly understand the audio world. I really have pushed the folks on my brand team that work with Oxford to educate themselves and for us to become experts as well, because I don't want to be the person in the room that doesn't know what they're talking about. And so audio is a lot different than YouTube and Instagram and all the other channels we work across. And so I really think making sure the expertise also sits in-house in addition to working with the right agencies.
Yes. And I have a lot of tips. Sorry. This one's good. I used to tell my new clients coming in at the agency, I would say, look, here's the deal. I wish that I could just promise you everything's going to work.
Yeah.
It's not. You have to have a test mindset. You got to know some are going to crush it, some are going to be okay, and some are going to suck so bad. You have to give it time.
Yeah.
We're in a different age of podcasting now. It used to be like there were 2 baked in ads and everyone was listening to them. It's a different landscape now. So you have to also make sure that you have, oh my God, do you guys remember the days? I don't know if maybe some brands still do this, but like 7 years ago, I would test like one spot on a show and it would work. and it would hit their CPA target like day 3. And I'm like, whoa, let's go. It's not like that anymore. You got to spend time on the show, let the audience get to know your product, deliver great creative, be very test heavy. And then if you can give podcasts the time that it deserves, I promise you it's going to be one of your most successful channels.
Also, listen to the reads. I really do. I'm in Podscribe listening to every read that every one of our creators does. It's so important. And I want to hear them getting better. I want to hear them elaborating on the storytelling. I want to hear them not reading off the script that I gave them, but instead like feeling more confident. And you're never going to get that if you aren't listening to the reads and constantly providing feedback.
We actually have an army of AirCheck graders who grade every live read against lots of different criteria, and our data shows that in every single one of those criterias, the indents perform better for all of the reasons that we've been discussing today. But
Feedback.
yes. So just to kind of wrap it up a bit, if there's one thing that I'm hearing is, buying independence isn't always easier, but it can be incredibly powerful. The creative is more authentic, the relationship deeper, the audiences are so engaged. But if you're a brand and you're thinking about buying independence, it's not a, major networks versus independence. It's really about finding the right mix and balance, right, with anything. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.